For example, just to give an example, it would be what Fountainhead is doing in Berlin to raise consciousness. For example, Black Film Festival. I mean, that's new in Europe, and that is for me a form of raising consciousness. I take, for example, what you are doing in Berlin as a great contribution. There are very many Black Germans who also run into identity problems living in this society. And I was amazed how many of them were at the film festival. And one asks herself, why are they there? And it's because they're interested in what is going on. They want to know who they are. They feel they belong. They do not feel that we are just swimming in between. As there was a film, I think it goes back 2 or 3 years ago, in the third program, about the problems facing the Black Germans and their identity and what goes on. Just the act of giving a platform to express ourselves, because this Black Film Festival is not just showing a whole lot of Black films. They are handpicked. A lot of them are political films. This time there's a lot of films really pertaining to women also, where Black people can express themselves. After the films we have a discussion, most of the time, lively discussion. That is where you learn who you are, what you are. We exchange views. We do not feel then isolated. We do not feel, oh, I'm in the society, I have to try very hard to be this what they want. You are you. And this is one thing. In Africa, basically, I think the consciousness is there. It just needs to be channeled into the right way, in the right time. In South Africa, obviously, which I can basically really only talk for, I think in the last few years we've seen dynamic consciousness, and I think the rest of Blacks in the world can take an example. And I'm talking about our young. I'm not talking of me. I mean the young. I'm talking of 14-year-olds who have stood up and said, I am Black and I'm proud to be Black. And that is raising consciousness of Blacks the world over, because now people are saying those children are willing to die for being Black. What are we sitting back and doing? People like Andrew Young, you name them in the States, that's when they started questioning. After the Martin Luther area sort of quietened down, the Pan-African thing in America quietened down, there wasn't much. But I've noticed now that with the South African thing, a lot of awareness, even in America, came about, especially in the university campuses. I was surprised at the support, and we're very proud of it, that came from Black people in America. And this is also another form. It was not done purposely. Blacks in South Africa, we've got nowhere to go but fight for our motherland, And this is it. And like I said the other night, Donald, my mother always said, you might not know where you're going, but you know where you come from. And I'm born of a Zulu woman, and I'm damn proud I'm Black. And there's one thing nobody can take away from me. And that's consciousness.
So then when the people address you, then whose needs is it that they are addressing?
Their needs. They want to feel this feeling of being needed. They want us to support their superiority complex. They need us to need them. Otherwise, they have no justification for their superiority complex. And that is why there's perpetuation of all the time, and that is why they even try very hard amongst the Black people, especially in the case of Africans, to keep these unseen chains in our heads, where we must continue feeling inferior, because otherwise they will have no excuse for that type of behavior. Your political awareness or what you're trying to portray can't be very deep. And you're not interested in what the person's saying. You're interested in what the person looks like or what the person is saying. And then also that person must help you because you have a psychological problem. I don't. I know who I am. I know where I'm going. I do not need to justify myself to you. Either you with me because of the human race and because we are so intermingled as the world, and we are sorry sometimes, which I wish if Africa could economically cut off for a while to get themselves straightened out from the rest of the economical world, maybe it would work. And that is what I try to say to them. Say, but I'm forced to be with you people and put up with it because we are tied down in this case, and that is why. For no other reason. I am not here to justify myself. I'm here to talk to you on the same level. And if you're not willing to accept that, then we don't have a basis to discuss on. I'm not coming here as an inferior person to discuss with you. You know, you have something to learn from me, and I hope you might have something that I can learn from. I've noticed even to this damn day when there's an anti-apartheid meeting and we go to it like Black Women's Day, there's another black South African girl and I. The first question, it was not what do you women try. Why are you dressed the way you are dressed? How can you afford it when you people are starving and stuff like that? Those are the questions that even to this day we get from German public. It's how I portray myself.
What is the reaction to your response?
Generally very different. People feel I'm very aggressive politically. I don't mind. That's me. Those days are gone where I wanted to be the nice little African girl, you know, and please everybody. No, I don't mind. People who know my worth will accept me for who I am, and they'll be willing to get deeper. And those are the people that I will profit from and learn from internationally, from the international community.
What is your relationship to the other African students here, black African students in Berlin?
We have a good relationship, basically. We must remember that Africa is very large. We have a difference in culture in many instances. We have a different outlook to certain things, but basically we are one maybe on political ways of thinking, and that we do really try to achieve a certain amount of awareness for ourselves, consciousness, which we hope, if the possibility arises, also to transmit to others. And this is basically what we really would like to do. We get on a lot on things, issues like South Africa. I think that's one thing that no African argues about, no black person in this world, you know, I must meet one yet. And we really can get into that and talk about it and the basic problems as to the role Africa is playing, world politics and the economical situation, which really dictates the political situation we are in. And everyone tries to play down and talk only on the political situation. It's the economical situation of Africa that has to be discussed, which we have to try and see as hopeful returning Africans what we can contribute to our different societies.
And what is the economic position of many of the Africans that are residing in Berlin?
Right now, disastrous is maybe the only word we could really use. And as I said, it's a general problem that any so-called developing country has. We have basically all the hardware, but the know-how or the software is all in the developed countries. We are dependent on it, and we are forced to accept what they offer us for our wares, our raw materials. We have no choice because medicine, which is really a priority for Africa, we need from the Western world or even the East Bloc countries. We have to get it from them. We just have no choice to say, you know, we're not going to sell our sugar cane to you at that price, or our cocoa or our coffee. And we have to sell it at the world market prices. Who decides the world market prices? Wall Street, you name it. It's not decided by us. And this is it. The dollar rules also in Africa. And this is what we have to deal with every day, as well as the political situation. You know, which way do you vote? Do you get help from a Western country? Depending whose side you're on in the United Nations, then you're going to get that extra aid for your country so that they might build that road that's going to bring that sugar cane or that cash crop easier to the port to be shipped out at a minimal price. And you buy back that same sugar, which is then refined here in one of the Western countries at 20 times, maybe even more. I'm not such a good economist, than what you sold your sugar for. You can hardly, people eat chocolate in Germany like sugarcane grows here daily. And it comes from these countries. People forget where it came from. Even bananas and pineapples are getting cheaper to buy here than in our countries. No, most children in Germany don't know that bananas don't grow in Germany. They're fed that from birth because it's such a good baby food. Our people don't get these bananas anymore. They're all being shipped out. And for a minimal of price, it's getting cheaper and cheaper. I know what it was like when I first came. How much a pineapple cost here, about 8-10 marks. Now you get pineapples for 2 marks 99. But I think a real basic thing that has sustained racism is economics. Slavery came about because they needed cheap labor. Because in America the Indians were not suitable to be made into slaves. And blacks were suitable enough. That's when it started. Colonialism came about. They discovered this rich continent. Who were better workers? If you look at the infrastructure of many countries in West Africa, they were built just to take out, and racism was perpetuated. You have to tell me that I am less, so that you can carry on misusing me, misusing my intellect, my strength. It's a real deep brainwash, where you brainwash me to the extent that you can continue with this form of racism, so you can continue exploiting my resources without me fighting back. And once you are economically strong, you will find there is a lessening of racism. That is my basic feeling of the perpetuation. Besides, of course, where you have the natural other problems of somebody's own white, in South Africa, for example, the Boers owns white inferiority complex because they had a lack of education. And then they try to put it onto the next group they could suppress because the British were on top of them, which is still the state today. The black man in South Africa, the white Boer still looks at him as competition. Educationally, and especially in the cities, some of the black South Africans are way above white Boers. And the white Boers cannot compare with the British in South Africa. This helps bring about a very strong form of racism, because this is something you hate, and you found that this is a good tool to use to oppress somebody else. And it's easy also because this form of racism, of black-white, is easy to control. We are very much aware, there you are, economically it's most beautiful.
Mona, what is your relationship with the other black groups in Berlin? And could you tell us a little bit about it? And could you possibly describe also the groups?
Okay. It is different. They are very different groups, as one can well imagine. They are black Africans, they are Caribbean people coming from the Caribbean, and they are the black Americans, and they are the German blacks. The black Africans, basically, it is not too much of a problem generally relating to them, because most of the times on one-to-one, we've had basic experiences. All our countries have been colonized. Naturally, I would say I probably get on culturally better with someone who was British colonized, as Swaziland and South Africa were once British protectorates, where in comparison with someone who was from a Francophone African country. But we've all been colonized. Before that, there was enslavement. We all know the problems that face Africa, basically. The next group would be, who I relate well to, would be people from the Caribbean. They are very proud of their roots, of coming from Africa. Here I have to take the comparison to a black American. They do not look at Africa as being jungle, being in the backwoods. I've never known someone from the Caribbean asking me, can I find a place where I won't have hot water so I can really see what it's like to live in the jungle where there's no electricity, which I've gotten from black Americans. I've never found this with people from the Caribbean. I notice even things they go back to. I met somebody from the Caribbean. Even trees, wild trees, the leaves they picked from to make tea. They were proud of all these things. They were proud of what it meant to be African. When they meet an African, they embrace you, as an African, as somebody who they almost look up to, which is not because they look up to, but it makes you have a really good feeling. If you look at their poetry, it all relates to Africa. If you look at even the movement of the so-called Rastas has African roots in it. Coming to the black Americans, there is of course a difference. There are those who have been exposed more, who have traveled a little more. Naturally, those are the ones I can relate to very well. There is no problem. But the majority of blacks in Berlin, particularly from America, are in the military. And my basic feeling is, I look at it as how South Africa has tried to rule and divide the blacks within South Africa, saying you are so-called colored, Asian, and you are pure black. And the black American here in the military sort of looks at himself, hey, because even though I came as a slave, but I got honored actually to be brought here as a slave. Now I'm an American. I don't come from that bush. I don't come from the people who wear rings in their ears, who wear all these, who don't have electricity, who don't have that, who economically are so down. They forget that when they look, for example, child immortality rate in America amongst the blacks is higher than in Africa, for example. Most blacks are not even aware of this. They try very hard by being given this so-called high status to come to Berlin, to totally integrate themselves within the white society of America, which is not going to work. Because the Second World War proved that the blacks, Americans who came and fought, when they went back, they even had a harder war to fight against the whites in America. I wish personally that the black Americans could be a little bit more open and not put up barriers when they meet a black or a person of color from somewhere else and see, what does this person have to offer me? What can I offer this person? I want to learn from black Americans. I want to learn, what do they go through? I'm proud to see what they've become. When I think what slavery did to them, I'm proud when they tell me, my grandmother had to pick cotton in Mississippi for this and this. And today, I am doing night studies. I'm a sergeant in the military. I'm proud to say, wow, he is studying. And that he's even talking to me and saying, hey, what part of Africa do you come from? And he's not embarrassed to say, where is it? Can you show me? Could we talk about it? And this is it, because we have to, as blacks, join together on international basis. Because if it carries on, I tell you, to be like in South Africa, they will rule and divide us all the time, and we'll never make it. And that is what's behind it all. We are not going to make it if we carry on thinking like that, because they're not going to accept you. And it's how I look at black Americans who are in the military right now, and very few outside. Most of the ones outside have really had good relationships with, they've really come up consciousness and said, wow, this is it, this is what Africa. Sure, Africa is not America. I don't want it to be, God forbid. Pan-Africanism goes back a long way. Some people like to think of Nkrumah as having been one of the fathers, I would like to put it that way. His idea was to have a united black states. And this, in Africa, this is where it started off, how I look at it, in the African sense, where all Africans could have joined together to contribute to the good of that continent. People have taken it a step further now, which I find even more enriching if it becomes a possibility. And I pray that everyone carries on working at it on an international basis. In America, the Caribbean, Latin America, which at times we tend to forget, and Asia. We have many black brothers there. And if this concept can catch on, which is economically so dynamic, the possibilities, the strength and the know-how that black people do possess, if they did join hands. I think, from now you can correct me, Donald, I think it's Du Bois, who's nice saying, I forget exactly how it goes, until the people of the Americas, Africa and Asia join hands. Before we do that, we are not. That's for me, I don't know the poem, I'd have to find the exact saying. That's for me a real strong Pan-Africanistic way of expressing in precise words of what Pan-Africanism means to me and what I hope black people understand out of this. Naturally, there's still going to be a diverse goings on and different ways of thinking. And I think one black man said, we have to start owning banks also. This is the basis. It sounds very materialistic, but one's working in a materialistic world. And Pan-Africanism, Steve Biko in South Africa, we called it black consciousness. It's also for me a form of Pan-Africanism. I can name many blacks who have contributed to Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism for me does not have one definition. Each great black has interpreted it in their good way. Steve Biko was black consciousness, which was, for example, stop putting bleach creams on your face, stop straightening your hair. That is Pan-Africanism. That is raising our consciousness of who we are and what we are. Never mind the political basis. Those are the things we have to first get rid of to be a total Pan-Africanistic ways of people, of thinking. We have to get rid of the basic chains that imprison our minds inside. And once that is gone, then I think Pan-Africanism is just going to be something that's going to be accepted the world over, as it is slowly starting, especially amongst the black people. As you asked before, Donna, amongst the blacks in Berlin, like now this Black Film Festival, it is really lovely to go to Steinplatz in that cafe and see these people coming, black people come from all over, from Timbuktu until, you name it. It's really an enriching, beautiful feeling to see, here's so-and-so, he's coming from Nigeria. Here's so-and-so, he's from St. Lucia. Here's so-and-so, he's from Mississippi. Here's so-and-so, he's from Kentucky. It is so nice. Here's so-and-so, he's from Brazil. And there we are all relating, and we are calling each other brothers and sisters. We are all black. That is Pan-Africanism. We are all facing the same problems. We are all trying to overcome. And once we reach it, we are all also then transmitting it further. And that is what black consciousness or Pan-Africanism basically means for me. And how I will relate to it is trying to further this consciousness, which is for me very important, and above all to our young. I have a young son, and I really face the problems with him. One can ask me and say, oh, that's not Pan-Africanism, when my son comes and says, I don't want to be African, I want to be German, they're strong, Africans lose, And I say, no, look at yourself in the mirror, you are African. That's Pan-Africanism for me. I feel that question does not really pertain to me. I'm sure the Jewish people have their problems, I respect them. But for me, this brings up the old problem of white women's emancipation being compared to the black people's oppression. I find each in its own right has been oppressed. But I find my problem is, or rather my struggle is in raising consciousness of black people as to being black and being proud of being black, and for whites to accept us. I cannot try to find a parallel in Judaism with being black. That is for me not a question. That's a good one. Actually, I think I was looking for a father figure. I was very young. I was new in Berlin, and there was this lovely tall African man. What more did I want? He was going to take care of me. He was taken with this young black girl from Africa, at the time innocent. And I liked his hands. This goes back to why I chose him. But basically, he was African. I could relate to him more when you come to the more serious part. And as I said, I was looking for somebody. I wasn't looking, it happened. That would be unfair. Today I can say I'm looking because I have that type of awareness. So I'm looking. I was not looking for nobody. I was young. I came here. All I wanted was study. And my husband, who I'm separated from, will tell you that also. He'll say, she used to tell me, leave me alone. I came here to study. So that was not really the basis. But he knew about South Africa. And that made me feel good because he knew so much about the politics in South Africa. Maybe I look at things too much in an economical senses. I think if I interpret what goes on between a white couple, I think their social, political, economic situation is more relaxed, is much easier, because they've been brought up that the world belongs to them, everything belongs to them. They have an easier relationship between each other. This, now I'm really generalizing, okay? Because things in life have come basically easier. That means even that relationship is on a more relaxed basis because the outside pressures are not as acute as you will find between a black woman and a black man who both really are going to have to work very hard. And the black woman, black man brings me into a lot of diverse questions or discussions that come up because it depends who I'm thinking of when you ask this question. If I'm talking about black South African relationship, man to woman, I say our consciousness, our development is being together. We are fighting. The black woman is 3 times discriminated against in the South African society. The black man also. He's also a sex object. He's also black. Our aim is to work together for our liberation, and that you find most of the time in the relationship. That if they're in any way relating on a good basis, it's going to be political. It has to be in South Africa. That the woman's going to support that man in his political way and he the other way, because everything you do as a black in South Africa is political. When I look at the black American, or I try to interpret a black American situation, the black man in America, I feel, has been by the white society to a certain extent castrated. And I feel there's become a negligence to a relationship, man to woman, because everything is being taken away. The only thing he's good at is supposed to be sex. He does that, he makes a baby. After a while, the normal life thing comes where his partner starts saying, look, we have to do this, we have to make a go of this. This has to work. He can't deal with it. He's never been able. He's been told all his life, you're not capable. He runs away. And that is why in America you have a large amount or more women, single-headed families in the black community as in the whites, because the men have been so oppressed in that society, and the women have learned rather to have to fight harder to make a go of any type of family life. And this is why it is a very difficult question, because you cannot understand, for me, you cannot compare black relationships as such between black man and woman to a white man and white woman. This question again brings a lot of ideas to my head, because I would think most of the time when something of that sort comes, the white world cannot deal with this. For me, it was not new that it was, if AIDS came about or any other new disease going to come that they can't cure, has to come from somewhere else. When gonorrhea became such a problem, came from Asia, or was it syphilis? I don't know. It came from Asia. As soon as such a thing breaks out, it can never be this pure, holy white world. This white world has to be kept intact for the white young to be able to grow up into this healthy white world. Therefore, scapegoats are always going to be found. Whether it has perpetuated racism, there is an argument in the literature and media as such whether AIDS, for example, was supposed to have come from African monkeys or something of the sort. Or at least they didn't say it was promiscuousness. But seeing it was discovered somewhere else, maybe it should be looked at the other way around, and we should say and have the racism and say the whites, through their promiscuousness, have spread the AIDS. Because if we're eating monkeys all these years, I don't see why the AIDS only came a problem now. So amongst black people, I don't feel a sting about this AIDS thing. I think it's just a sick mentality of the whites trying to find a scapegoat. I personally, as a black, and I advise any blacks, and the ones I know don't take it seriously. I have many hopes. Fears? I don't have none. I don't want to have any. Not when it comes to black people. We can't have any more fears. We've had it can't get worse. We've had so many fears that it's not going to get worse anyway. You know? Our fears, we are living with them. We've learned to deal with them. They've not become fears anymore. It's our daily life. How can we have any fears? We can only look to the future. It can't get worse. It can only get better, is how I say. And I see my brothers and sisters around me improving every day. And I say, go for it, because they're only going forward. Again, I take South Africa. It can't get worse than it has been. It can only go forward, and it's going to get liberated. Take Black America. Most of them are moving in all fields. When I look how many states have black mayors, I say, it's getting better. We don't have fears. We are leaving our fears behind us. We've lived them. We didn't even know there were fears. It was our daily life.